What if I told you there was a family that controlled trade across 3 continents, built a business empire stretching from Baghdad to London, and did it so quietly that most people have never heard their name? Not the Rothschilds, not the Rockefellers, the Sassoons. And the wealth secrets they used are hiding in plain sight. Welcome back to the channel where we dig into history's greatest wealth builders and pull out the lessons that still work today. Let's get into it. In the early 1800s, Baghdad was one of the most important trading cities in the Middle East. And sitting at the center of that world was a Jewish merchant family, the Sassoons. David Sassoon was the chief treasurer of Baghdad, respected, connected, powerful. But in 1829, political instability forced him to flee with his family and whatever wealth he could carry. Most people would start over from scratch and spend years rebuilding. David Sassoon did something different. He moved to Bombay, modern-day Mumbai, looked at the trading routes between the Middle East, India, and China, and saw something nobody else was acting on. An open lane, a gap in global trade that was sitting there waiting to be filled. Within a few years, he had built a trading house, David S. Sassoon and Sons. That would become one of the most powerful commercial operations of the 19th century. The lesson here is already massive. Disruption creates opportunity. When David lost everything in Baghdad, he didn't look backward. He found the next open market and planted his flag there first. Here's where the Sassoon strategy gets really interesting. David had 8 sons, and instead of keeping them all in Bombay, he deployed them like chess pieces. One son in London, one in Hong Kong, one in Shanghai, one in Calcutta. Each son ran a branch of the family business in their city. Each one was trusted completely because they were family, and they all reported back to the center. This was their unfair advantage. While other trading companies were trying to manage employees they barely knew. Across long distances, the Sassoons had family members on the ground. In every major port city, people with skin in the game. People whose success was directly tied to the family's success. Communication in the 1800s was slow. Ships took weeks. Letters took months. Most businesses lost control the further they expanded. The Sassoons solved this by making trust the foundation of their infrastructure. Family was their technology. Think about what that means for building wealth today. Your network is your net worth isn't just a saying. The Sassoons built a literal human network across continents, and it gave them information, speed, and relationship advantages that competitors simply couldn't replicate. So what were they actually trading? Textiles, precious metals, and most lucratively, opium. Now, the opium trade is a complicated and dark part of this story. The British Empire was moving opium from India into China on a massive scale, and the Sassoons were deeply embedded in that trade. It made them wealthy. But here's the wealth-building angle that doesn't require their ethics. They understood that the real money wasn't just in the product. It was in controlling the entire chain. They didn't just sell goods. They owned the ships that moved them. They financed the transactions. They had agents at every port handling customs and relationships. They were operating what we would today call a vertically integrated business. Control the supply chain and you control the margins. That principle built empires then, and it builds businesses today. By the mid-1800s, the Sassoons were being called the Rothschilds of the East. They had banks, real estate, and trading operations across Asia and Europe. Eventually, the family began to assimilate into British high society. They intermarried with prominent English families. Some converted from Judaism. They became less of a tight business unit and more of a social dynasty. And slowly, the business edge faded. The very thing that made them powerful, the tight family network, operating as one unified machine, loosened, and the edge was lost. This is one of the most important lessons in generational wealth. The Sassoons didn't lose their wealth because of bad investments or bad luck. They lost their edge because they stopped protecting the culture and structure that created it in the first place. Wealth without principles doesn't survive. The families that stay wealthy, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, they obsess over preserving the values, the structure, and the discipline that built the fortune, not just the fortune itself. The Sassoon family went from refugees fleeing Baghdad to running trade. They did it through relocation, network, vertical control, and discipline. Every single one of those principles works in 2024. Find the open lane. Build your network with people who have skin in the game. Control as much of your value chain as possible and your culture. If you found this valuable, subscribe because next week we're going deeper. The wealth secret we'll share is even more surprising. See you then.